Yeah, Nons, let's get into it. Let's get into it. We're not going to start with the sole point. No, we're not going to start with that sole point. We'll leave it for the end.
I'm sure he wants us to start with his 3 points, but
we'll start at the end.
No.
Yeah, we'll leave it for the end.
We both sour because
exactly.
Also his team lost.
Yes. So we'll leave Premier League chat to the end. Both men's and women's national cricket teams were in action this past weekend. Of course, the Momentum Proteas playing in a T20 series against Pakistan away at the National Stadium in Karachi, with the men's also playing a 3-match T20 international series against Australia at Hollywood Bets Kingsmead. Both of them rather disappointingly lost those series. Didn't win a game or haven't won a game so far. I know the ladies team have got one more T20. They've lost both, which is today, right? They've lost both the opening two, which obviously means that they've lost the series. Yeah. And a lot of people have been asking, how can you not be able to defend 150 on 2 consecutive occasions, especially when you've batted first? And I think for me, the simple answer to that is that the Proteas women's team just don't have enough experience and firepower within that bowling lineup since the retirement of Shabnim Ishmael. And I think that's so crucial in terms of bowling in those kind of conditions. You know, it's flat, it's good batting wickets, and you need just something extra to really propel yourself into a very threatening position. They have a really good bowling attack, but it just doesn't have enough firepower for me to take 10 wickets in a T20 game to win it. They've got the batting experience with Laura Wolfart and Tasman Brits at the top of the order, and then Marizanne Kappe and Sunil List to follow. But after that, they don't really have enough firepower for me to really trouble the Pakistani batters on those kind of batting wickets. And I think it's going to take a while for the South African women's team to find a replacement or like-for-like bowler to a Shabnim Ishmael, same pace, same aggression, same hunger to actually take wickets, particularly in the power play. And I think that's their Achilles heel so far, especially in those kind of conditions in Pakistan. But I think it's still a very good team, particularly batting-wise. But it's just they just need to find an extra sort of level in terms of the pace that some of the bowlers have in that lineup.
Yeah, I mean, I've got to start and say yes and no in what you said. I mean, I agree, certainly. I think the word is X factor that we're probably looking for here. We can't underestimate the work that Shabnim did for South Africa, being one of the quickest bowlers in the world in women's cricket for the longest time as well. And like I said, I think our previous, or maybe 2 parts ago, was the fact that it wasn't planned or phased out.
Yes.
Kind of speaks to that.
Yeah.
Because there are younger players coming through, raw, pace, one here at the lines as well. But like, they are still inexperienced in the fringes of the Proteas team. And like you said, there's no substitute for pace.
Yep.
In any men's cricket, women's cricket.
In India, they say pace is pacier.
You see, so the fact that they're missing that at the moment, I mean, we look at this current bowling lineup. Mlab, I think she's been amazing.
Yes,
she's consistent, lefty. You've got Marizanne Kappe, who's the outswinger, experienced player, but not quick.
Yeah.
Ayabonga Kaka, always
accurate.
She's always consistent, accurate. Masabata class, it's nice for her because I think she's getting an opportunity now to play a lot more, and she's also very steady and it's been good. Nadine de Klerk, Delmi Taka. Yeah. So you're talking about players who are decent at what they do, but that
X factor,
either a wrist spinner, fast bowler, makes a huge difference. I mean, you're looking at the scores here, like you said, 150s on a couple of occasions. The interesting part, though, for me in those games. South Africa were 150 for 3.
Yep.
We had Tasneem Brits 78 of 64. For
First
me,
game, yeah.
to use 64 balls is you got to be more than 120 strike rate.
Yeah.
Because you've taken more than half of the balls.
Yeah.
And if it needs to be 160, 170 strike rate because you got in.
Yes.
You got in. Laura got 44 of 38, 115 strike rate.
Yes.
So that means Marizanne Kapp only had 13 balls, got 19. So she strike rate of 146. So it just didn't allow the rest of the team to get enough to kind of have an impact in the game. So I think that's where the talking. That's why I said yes and no, because the batting front, there's still a lot of work that needs to happen. And just listening to Laura Wolfert about it, she said we're playing the power plays well, but we're getting stuck in the
afterwards.
We're getting stuck in the middle overs, and like we said, spin is going to be massive.
Yes.
And they've been they've been stuck in those middle overs because they're just not playing spin well. So the rate starts nicely, decent power play, but it dips. So that's something obviously we said as well, that experience, those players that are no longer there managing those middle overs well. So that's where I think it's been difficult, and obviously where potentially there could be massive improvements.
I've got a question then, because I mean, to me that says there's a bit of a concern with the sort of the middle order of the South African batting lineup. They're very top order heavy.
Yeah.
So if a Brits goes out cheaply, if a Laura Wolfert goes out cheaply, if a Marizanne Kapp goes out cheaply, I think there's a concern about the underbelly, about how the middle order can perform and really sort of maintain the rate or keep up with that rate, and that's why they take. They don't take long, but that's why they are extra cautious in those middle overs, particularly those top order batters, because I mean I think there's not enough experience in that middle order to really push up the strike rate to get it to 170 as a score, and then that can be a very difficult to sort of chase for an opposition. So I think for me it sounds very much like they're very top order heavy, and that they're concerned about the middle order and how effective the middle order can be in situations past the power play.
Yeah, you're spot on. I think you've summed it up really well there. It's when you feel that you don't have all the options that you have to help you in those middle overs to get through that phase, you tend to take a little bit more time in the middle, because you're worried about, if I take risks now, what does that mean? Behind? Yeah, because maybe the options, and this is why we emphasized the last time. I said it's a massive year for people like Obosinalo, because you've been around the team for a while now. And these are the opportunities now to say. I think the most important part for me is the fact is exactly that what we speak of. Usinalo Jefta having the opportunity to, having been around the international side for a while now, to have the opportunity to bat higher and use that experience, because, like you said, you need that 5-6. To come into assisting the top order, 7, because that's where I feel now South Africa is lacking that experience, and there's many opportunities that are available now. Who's going to put their hand up and kind of take those opportunities?
Yeah, no, I guess when you look at it in context, really good batting pitches in Pakistan. National Stadium always produces. Flat decks in Pakistan.
They only know one way.
there's only one way of preparing pitches in Pakistan, and that's to make them a road. So I think in context, maybe we can sit here and say that South Africa doesn't have enough sort of firepower in that bowling lineup, but ultimately
runs on the board, mate.
Yeah, you there's runs on the board, and you should be able to defend them, whether there's a flat deck or not. You've got runs on the board, and 150 in most cases you should be able to defend. It gets you a win in T20 cricket. So Yeah, hopefully this last game that they can pick up and end off the T20 leg of the series or the tour on a high note. And I know it's their first time in Pakistan as well. So I mean, there's various factors to it. First time playing in those kind of conditions. There's no player that has ever played in Pakistani conditions. New captain. So we can sit here and be critical, but there are so many other factors that go into maybe not being able to defend that 150 that maybe the team are slightly struggling with in terms of getting a grips of conditions, new philosophy in captaincy. Where does Laura Wolfart want to take this Proteas side into the future? We don't know how long she's going to be captain for as well, because she's slated in as interim captain until, which looks like there's going to be quite a bit of change in that women's setup in the near future. The coach's role is also up in the air.
That's exactly what I was thinking about.
The coach's role is up in the air, and maybe that's why the decision was to just place Laura Wolfart in an interim position, because we don't know what the new coach, if there is going to be a new coach, what he or she is going to be looking for in terms of leadership in that Proteas side. So there's a lot of factors that are sort of milling around in that Momentum Proteas camp.
And the big part for me as well, I always try to have development in mind and almost giving exposure, opportunities to, players that maybe haven't, been entrusted with certain responsibilities before.
Yes.
And I mean, just looking at the batting order for even including the second game, it remained identical to first game. Laura, Tasmin, Marizan. Nadine came in slightly earlier to help with the 21 of 11 in the second game with 190 strike rate, which is perfect.
Yeah.
But Sune hasn't batted much.
Yes.
Bosch hasn't batted, Tucker hasn't batted, Sinalo hasn't batted.
Yes.
So it's also another opportunity, I'd feel. I mean, potentially both teams they're going to lose 3-0 in the same week.
Yeah.
So how about you give opportunity and see what else you have, so that, I mean, it's obviously still the same coach. You kind of explore and see if anyone has grown, give opportunities and see how they could grow. For growth, So those are the opportunities for me that I feel like still could be taken, because like I said, it's just how can they close this gap now that's blatantly there for everyone to see, the experience that's been lost in the last couple of years with their senior players obviously retiring. And I think that's where now trying to plug those holes, and one of the ways is about creating those opportunities.
Yeah. Men's side also lost. We were both in comms for this series, and from the outset we spoke about this series being one eye or both eyes on the 2024 T20 World Cup in the US and the West Indies. But you still want to win. And I think the personnel that did duty in this T20 international series for the Proteas may have not taken up the opportunities that were presented to themselves. A player like Devo Brevis, and I know a lot of people are going to say, but
he's not batting in his usual.
Yes. But it's still an opportunity to showcase your skills, your talent, your ability at international level. And I want to start with Brevis because, he's one player that undoubtedly has the talent. And a lot of people, when you speak to them who know Brevis a little bit more intimately, a lot of people say that I think at this stage, he's probably not at a mental level to be able to survive the rigors of international cricket. He's still at a franchise level where He's comfortable in his thinking, in his ability, in his knowledge of the game, and they need to push him to break out of that mold and get into international cricket, and that needs a mindset switch and not necessarily a talent or a technical ability. But there are players that were provided with an opportunity. I thought Lizard Williams bowled okay.
It's got better.
Got better.
As the series each game,
you know? And it's also the first time that he's played 3 consecutive games for South Africa. So, you know, that was a good opportunity for him to get into an international sort of mind frame on a consistent level, which for me I thought was great from the coaching staff to give a player like Lizard Williams that amount of opportunity to showcase himself and become better as the series went.
Yeah.
What I've also seen on social media, Nonzi, is a name that will always dominate, especially when the Proteas are playing, whatever format, is Temba Bavuma. Sure, last night he didn't have the greatest of games or nights. First ball dark, dropped a couple of catches. But people have always doubted his ability to play T20 cricket, which I think for me is a little bit harsh, particularly in this situation of the Australia T20 series. When you look at the squad and you look at the names that are not there, David Miller's not there, Quinton de Kock is not there, Heinrich Klaassen is not there. Those are the batters.
Yeah.
So how much of experience is taken out of this T20 side? And then you say, well, you shouldn't play Temba Bavuma because he isn't a T20 cricketer. Which for me is a little bit harsh, because when you look at it in context, you take those 3 guys out, who's left? You have a Donovan Ferreira who made his debut. You have a Matthew Breska who made his debut in this series. You have a Diego Brevis who made his debut in this series. Those 3 are inexperienced. Who else do you look at in terms of experience in that batting lineup? That's the one reason. The second reason for me is these 3 guys that you've taken out, Klaassen, Miller, and de Kock, you had to take them out because you have to manage their workload, because they've played so much league cricket in the South African winter months, and you don't want them to break down at the Cricket World Cup in India. So that, from a management and load perspective, was necessary. A guy like Temba Bavuma doesn't have those opportunities to play league cricket around the world. So the only opportunity...
He's been playing internal games,
exactly.
and from trying to give him proper game time, and obviously there's the 50 over series that is coming up. It's important to, obviously, when you think about it, obviously in reflection now, you think that's kind of the direction that they were coming from, to give him game time, which is exactly that. But at the same time, for me, I thought this was a perfect series to kind of see where is Bretsky in terms of, he's had some domestic success. Let's see on the next level where he fits in. You give him 3 games. Donovan Ferreira, you give him 3 games. Brevis, you give him 3 games. Because you want to see. The reason why I say that is because we're always in the lookout to try to grow our pool of players. You want to create competition within the national setup. Okay? Because these are net gains that we're looking for. And the most important part for me is giving that player opportunity. You've got the run. Let's see what you're... Because remember, it's T20 cricket, guys. T20 cricket, you're not guaranteed success. Especially high aggressive type of approaches where we want guys to have a go. You want to give them the opportunity, say, you've got 3 games. Have a go.
Give it a go,
Have a go. And then we'll assess after those 3 games. Okay, you know what? Donovan Ferreira, it looks like we're about to gain something there. The way he played on debut, now I'm thinking, I've been speaking a lot about 6, 7, 8 for South Africa. And that's exactly what these opportunities create. Oh, you know what? We've got Stubbs, we've got Donovan, we've got David Miller, we've got Klaassen. These are the guys that could potentially
win us
games in those slots. And of course, we've had the likes of Janssen as well, being someone that potentially could also come into the party as well. So these are the things that are just beyond just winning, which is important. And I know that, like, I always harp on it in these podcasts that, you know, as fans, it's not always just about winning. And for me, to lose 3-0 with those type of players playing, will be like, fair enough. Fair enough, because we've given opportunity. I'm not saying losing is acceptable, but I'm saying it would have been, from a fan's point of view, when I look at it, I'm like, okay, we're trying to bleed a few players, because again, like we said, the World Cup is next year in June, and that's where, for me, it kind of like it felt like a missed opportunity. But at the same time, 100% agree with what you said about Utemba, because he doesn't play those games. You don't want him going into those that 50 over leg of the series cold and not having that. So, but I think, again, we tend to always focus on South Africa. But for me, what stood out is the brand of cricket Australia is playing.
Absolutely.
Guys. It's aggressive. And they've got all-rounders galore. Tim Davids, the Turners, the Aaron Hardy. You've got the captain himself batting at 3, Stoinis. Abbott. So it just shows you, you know, once you have a really big tournament like the Big Bash doing well, it's easier to reward guys into the national team. And do you know what? They look like they belong in that level, because the standards of the Big Bash. And that's the importance of the SA20 now. People might not realize the importance of SA20, because it translating that form into the national side, and also the brand of cricket is being played. Guys, I don't think at any game Australia were below 10 runs and over.
Not at all.
They never dipped below 10. I don't think at any stage South Africa went above 10. You know, consistently. 10, and that speaks to maybe the type of cricket we've been playing as a country, in terms of the aggressive. We tend to have more of the timing type of players, and it's time that now we also switch on and say, who are these players that can take a game? And at times it might not be a guy with all the stats we want. And it's about saying that guy's got the profile, the ability that we're looking for. We're gonna take a punt and have a look. And especially, like I said, it's in June. We're having a look. It doesn't mean the guy is guaranteed to get in. And also, once you've had a look at international level, everyone can see, hey, this guy might be getting stuck against a short ball here, or he's struggling against spinners. You know, you say, Chief, go back to domestic cricket. Work on A, B, and C, and hopefully in a couple of months or next series, we're going to have a look and that's also part of the national team, especially the T20 format for me, because it's you can't bleed guys at Test cricket. And 50 over cricket obviously is probably more aligned to the test side, but at the same time, obviously, there's the World Cup, so you kind of limited in terms of how much you give. And this was a perfect opportunity to have a look as a national team, coaching staff right now.
The World Cup squad is being announced. Obviously, this will come out after the World Cup squad has been announced, but it's worth a try and an attempt to try and preempt which names will be in that squad. It's obviously been, I think it's at Great Bloom.
Great College.
Yeah, Great Bloom, that announcement. I think from the current squad that, firstly, before we get there, there's been a lot of questions about why are South Africa announcing a World Cup squad before they play the one-day international series against Australia. don't the coaches want to see how players play in the one-day international series before they announce the squad? So it's an interesting question for me because it's got a lot of weight on it. But I think the more logical answer to that is that maybe the coaches already know who they want to take to India, and that the Australian series will be a tune-up for those players that they already know will go to India and do duty for the World Cup in India.
Yeah.
But a lot of people then say, what if there's an outside opportunity for players in this Australia series before you announce? Then what happens then? So it's an interesting question, which I only have one answer to. No?
What's your answer?
My answer is the coaches already know who they want.
Yeah. It's actually, I have not considered it from that point of view, and it's actually a very important question because we sit here sometimes and laugh and say the team. We could probably predict the team, you know. And again, we don't allow, like last night, Donovan Ferreira scores a big score. Yeah. So now what happens? Instead, now we saw Tim David first T20. He scores a gun 70.
Gets drafted into
the 50 over. They want to have a look.
Yeah.
They want to have a look, and that's exactly what these opportunities are about. So similar to Donovan Ferreira, you just had you finished the innings really well. Let's draft him in the 50 over side. Let's have a look as well. Let's see what you could do in that. And you are spot on because now you've kind of closed the door in that. And funny enough, what they've probably had several camps. And the camps is you're playing amongst yourselves. And that was one of probably just going back a little bit to the T20 just for a second. Is I heard on a couple of occasions the captain saying they felt rusty. And for me, that was kind of like, I don't know if you could say that in public. Because you've had several camps. And again, it was a missed opportunity from my side, from a planning point of view, to say, we the national side, we're obviously trying to simulate a camp and whatever. What would have stopped them to play the Dolphins? What would have stopped them to play the National Academy? What would have because I can tell you guys for free, the worst games to play as a sports person is the internal games because you can never really find that same intensity when you're playing against someone that is not in the same change room as you. So I would have thought, a few games before leading up to the T20 leg, you play the Titans, you play the National Academy, you play the Lions. Anyone that's here that obviously from a planning point of view
makes it
and you go to that with a run of games. And I just thought there was a missed opportunity. And again, now it's similar with some of the guys having not played 50 over cricket, and now you're saying these are the guys that I'm taking. But I guess maybe in terms of brand, what the coach wanted to see, got what he needed to see. But it will be interesting to kind of, if there will be any shocks from that. But I don't foresee anything out of the ordinary thinking about the squad.
I think I want to go back slightly to what you said about Donovan Ferreira. I mean, a perfect example of a player taking the opportunity in a role that is so specific. It's a specific role to finish an innings. And we've relied on David Miller for a hell of a lot. Why don't we just bring in a guy like him to try and assist the likes of Klaasen and a Miller? He's much younger. He's going to be around for a little bit longer than a David Miller and a Heinrich Klaasen. So, for me, it's interesting. I think the current squad, though, that will face Australia in the one-day international series looks like the kind of squad that they will take to India.
It's a squad of 15, right? And I mean,
15 for the World Cup.
For the World Cup. And I'm looking at the ODI squad here. It's Themba Bavuma, Devil Brevis, Coetzee, Quinton de Kock, Bjorn Fortuin, Riza Hendricks, Marco Janssen, Heinrich Klaasen, Sisanda Magala, Keshav Maharaj, Aiden Markram, David Miller. We've got Lungingiti, Anrich Nokia, Tabre Shamsi, Wayne Parnell, Kagiso Rabada, Tristan Stubbs, and Rassi van der Dissen. So, I mean...
That's how many players? It's more than 15.
20.
Yeah, so
5 need to go.
5 need to go.
We need to put our heads on the on the block here.
5 need to go.
5 need to go, and I mean, I'm gonna presume Brevis won't make it. Your thoughts?
I think so too.
Okay. Because I'm starting captain Temba, Devil Brevis,
He makes the reserves. Yeah.
reserves, Gerald Kutsia,
Reserve.
Quentin de Kock
In.
Bjorn Fontaine
In.
in, Reza Hendricks
In.
in, Marco Janssen
In.
in, Hendrik Klaassen,
In.
Sisanda Magala.
If he recovers from injury, then yes, he is in.
Okay.
So there's a bit of a cloud there.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Keshav Maharaj.
In.
Must be careful, Chief. You need
Yeah.
5. Aiden Markram,
In.
David Miller,
In.
Lungingidi.
I said Gerald is not making it, right?
Gerald and Brevis.
Gerald and Brevis are not in. Gidi in.
Okay. Nokia.
In.
Like real obvious. Tabre Shamsi. He has to go. It's India.
In, yeah.
Wayne Parnell.
Also injury cloud, but if he recovers, he's definitely going.
Definitely going.
Yeah.
Kagiso Rabada.
Definitely going.
And Tristan Stubbs.
Doesn't make it.
Doesn't make it.
Yeah.
So technically, you've left out. You said could be in is Wayne Parnell and Sisana Makala
Yes, because of injury.
of injury. So we're sitting in a position now where potentially Sisana Makala has had an impact.
Yes.
We don't know who's going to replace him.
Yes.
We've had Wayne Parnell has been playing of late. We don't know who's going to replace him.
Yes.
I think there's a question mark around how many spinners they're going to take.
That is true.
Are they taking 3
Front line spinners.
front line or taking 2? And the other thing that stood out for me in this series, or the T20 leg of the series, having wrist spinners, guys.
It's difficult.
Having wrist spinners in white ball cricket is a game changer. And you and I might have had an informal conversation and saying, who's been Tabre Shamsi's competition in South Africa? Since Imran Tahir, he's had that role for a while. We see Bjorn Fontaine and Keshav Maharaj compete in white ball cricket. Someone might have the opinion, say Keshav is better. I mean, I've played with Bjorn Fontaine in white ball cricket and know the impact he's had at the Lions, winning all tournaments, being an integral part of all those competitions.
Yes.
But for me, I think, again, a massive talking point, who's competing with Shamsi? And we've mentioned the likes of the youngster of Caleb Seleka.
Yes.
You've got Sean van Berg, was more of a red ball bowler. We've got Ngaba Peter, who's just joined here.
I was going to say.
You've got also the other leggy at the Lions,
Junaid
Dawood. Kaba is the left arm
Thomas
wrist spinner
Kaba.
as well. So it's South Africa. That's another area that we really need to focus on, because we knew when Imran Tahir was bowling in the middle overs, we could lock one side out and we could
Pick
it
up
kind
2 or
of
3 wickets
help
as well.
South Africa
Yeah.
to be more competitive in white ball cricket in the middle overs. And it just feels at the moment, Tabrez is not as in form in the way we would like him, and is not impacting the games in the way that we would like him. And it's a very important conversation there, like to get him right before India, because it's so important for South Africa and what he could offer in those middle. I know I just went off a little bit, but like I just felt that's something that's important as well to have in that conversation.
Yeah. So we're done with picking that ODI.
You went on the fence and you gave
I
me
never
2
went-
guys
I never
that
went on the
could
fence.
not be.
But
It just shows you how difficult
It's
it is,
difficult,
because you have to leave someone. The only good thing is that Klaassen is obviously the secondary wicket keeper, so he would go.
Yeah.
But now the question is, does all three spinners make it?
Yep.
And also, what happens with Sasanda and Parnell? Do you take them even though
they are injury risk?
they're injuries? I mean, it's happening in the Springboks at the moment. Do you make a call? Because I think in terms of backing up KG, for me, Magala does that.
Yeah.
I think there's a question mark on terms of impact Kangiti right now.
Yes.
And again, that's someone also probably desperate for what's he Gallup playing games, having that run of games and trying to get his form up, because potentially there could be also a big name missing
from that squad. Yeah.
If Parnell and Magala are deemed fit.
I don't want to be a selector.
You see, you like being on the fence.
I don't want to be a selector.
The good thing is the selectors are the coaches now.
And the captains.
So it's you made the call, Chief. You made the call with your medical staff. You've got no one else.
That's an interesting thing as well. I think we haven't spent any time on it, because I mean, at the previous World Cup, there was a selection panel.
Yeah.
That was disbanded when Enoch Nkwe came in as director of cricket. Does the onus now, does it make it better in terms of the onus lying on the coaches and the captain to pick the squads that they want to represent South Africa at any given point, not just at the World Cup? Does it make it fair on players? Does it make it a better situation? Because we're going to get selection debacles.
Yeah.
There's always a selection sort of controversy at a World Cup and at any given stage in South African cricket.
Well, right now, straight away, it's taken away because the coach is making the call. You're not going to, the coaching staff passing it on to the convener and the selector. You're making the call, which is, I think, is a good and a bad way, because as a coach at times, you're seeing your players week in, week out, and you get to be closer with them. It's more, it becomes a very difficult decision because of being closer with them. Whereas if you've got those eyes from the outside, a different perspective, that convener, at times it kind of makes it, Chief, this is what we're seeing.
Yes.
As someone, we are involved, but not as hands-on as you are. Yeah. We give you a different perspective, which it can be crucial at times to give the coach just, someone to bounce ideas off from the outside. So, in terms of accountability, I agree with it. Yep. But, it can get tricky once you become close with the players. You always want the best for everyone, and I'm seeing how you're working hard in the nets, and I can just give him another chance. And then someone says, you know what, so-and-so from outside is actually doing well. How about him? Yeah. And it just gives you that point of view. So it is interesting to see how it goes. It will be our first World Cup with that approach. But in at least the coach is making that decision.
And also the coaches, as much as they are cricket people, they can't get to every ground. They can't get to every level to try and watch and track players. So from that point of view, maybe it could be a bit of an Achilles heel. But I also think that it's we're better off having the responsibility lie with the coaches and the captains to try and pick squads for South Africa going forward.
No. Fair enough. I think probably a nice way to move to a different conversation.
Yes, very much. Very much. MTN 8 this past weekend. Whoa. Whoa. Chiefs Sundowns. And we spoke last pod about the importance of Kaizer Chiefs following up good performances with another good performance. They've had 3 of them in a row. It was Amazulu,
two league wins.
And, Amazulu and Stellenbosch in the league, and then Sundowns. I thought this past weekend in the cup game, that first half, and maybe it's an intentional sort of tactic from Molefi Ntseki and the Chiefs sort of coaching staff. But in that first half, they were very much happy to allow Sundowns to have all the ball.
71% ball position.
It looked like
71.
They were very happy.
The bus was completely, the keys were gone, the driver had clocked out, it was parked.
He was having lunch at the FNB Stadium somewhere.
It was parked.
So it looked like that for me. And I think I said it on social media that at least Chiefs will be happy that they didn't concede a goal in that first half when they didn't have any of the ball.
Yeah.
And I think it when you look at it in how the match unfolded, they were very happy with the initial result until Khuliso Mudau equalized.
Yeah.
Because the second half was much better because they knew that they could employ and find holes at the back of Sundowns because they know now if they can get the possession of the ball and try and hit them on the counter and make it accurate, they can score. And they did. Yeah. Until that last minute where Junior Mendieta, a fantastic assist.
Yeah.
It's probably one of the best assists I've seen in the season so far. Yeah. But you look at it from a Chiefs point of view and you say, okay, now I'm seeing how Molefi Ntseki wants to set up, particularly against teams like Sundowns who enjoy having a lot of the ball. What's going to be interesting for me is how they're going to set up when they play Pirates in the Soweto derby. Pirates also another very good side in terms of ball possession and playing fast football. But I think for me, Kaizer Chiefs in the past, by the evidence of the past 3 games, the 2 league wins, and of course the draw in the cup, they look like they've got a bit of organization.
Yeah, you are spot on. I mean, we've hopped on confidence, we've hopped on building momentum, and we called it in a way. I would say those run of wins were building up to that Sundowns. Yes, we might say they didn't play with a lot of position, but again, I mean, I think Jose said, I think we played Pep's team or something. He won with like a ridiculous ball position.
Like 30%.
They said they could keep the ball. I'll take the home. Points.
They can take the ball with them home.
Take, but so that's the most important part. I mean, West Ham against Brighton, similar, where they basically, I think it was 27% ball position. Yeah. They won 3-1.
Yeah.
So it's about having a game plan. Like I said, sometimes I think modern football now, we're so obsessed in terms
having
of
the ball.
Having the ball, style. Yes,
fancy,
it's nice.
Yeah.
What Pep does is nice. What Sundowns does is nice. Yeah. But there's so many different ways of approaching a game, especially when you are going to play the better side. Sundowns, let's be honest, right now are dominating South African football. Yeah. And to say a team that is rebuilding, let's go match them and take them on, I can't. So you're going to open up different gaps and all that stuff. And like you said, Chiefs was well organized. They had a game plan. We're going to catch them on the counter. But now, when you're playing a game plan like that, it forces you to be accurate.
Yep.
You have to be accurate. You might get 2-3 chances. And funny enough, again, West Ham had 2-3 chances and they made them count. And that now becomes, responsibility of the forwards, making the right decisions, and making use of those opportunities. And like you said, I mean, the coach said exactly that. He said the first half probably was good enough to forget about it because they didn't really do anything. But they pressed them a little bit more higher up. They got more. They got forward. That means the ball. They were intercepting the balls a lot further up, and you could quickly make the play a lot closer to goal than having to build up from the back, etc. And he said he seems very sure of his plan, what he's doing. And again, it's difficult when things are not going well, and obviously you question what the coach is doing. But now I think people are starting to see that there is something slowly that is building. And disappointing that they got that away goal because obviously it's the MTN 8, it's home and away. They started the first leg at home. And that away goal for Sundowns might be crucial because now it might force Chiefs to play a little bit more
expensive
away now, and that might be working perfectly for Sundowns.
It's set up nicely for the second leg.
Yeah.
And I think people don't think about the pitch dimensions. FNB much bigger pitch. You go to a much smaller Lucas Moripe Stadium. It encourages Sundowns to play a little bit more faster. It closes down the spaces a little bit more. So it's set up very nicely at the Lucas Moripe Stadium for the second leg because now both teams, maybe Chiefs a little bit more than Sundowns, has to go out and really chase the game to try and get that win and get. And beautiful game at the Athlone Stadium. Packed. Athlone Stadium looks in pristine condition, and you can see with this Pirates side, they've got what it takes to actually really trouble Sundowns this season in all competitions for me, because the previous, I think it was the quarterfinal of the cup of the MTN 8.
Clean them up.
Clean them up.
3-0 at home?
5-0.
5. I'm forgetting the other.
5-0 at home. And that was a much easier game for me, I feel like. It looked really nice when you see guys scoring 5 goals. It was an easy game. The hard games are when you have to come from behind, because they had to come from behind against Stellenbosch. Away from home.
Yeah, it did help with the red card.
It did.
Yeah, losing Molesane, I think that's a guy got a straight red. 35 minutes into the game.
Yeah.
But Pirates already a goal down by then. They had a goal just before, conceded a goal just before halftime.
Yes.
So they were 1-0 down, even though Stellenbosch were playing with 10 players. And obviously, again, it's about being composed, probably making sure your wingers are as wide as they can. You make the field as big as you can. Because obviously the Stellenbosch will try to protect the middle, give you the space on the outside. So, I mean, for the red hot striker at the moment, Lipasa, I just can't stop scoring at the moment, which is nice. I mean, I hope this run continues, because South African football has been dying for goal scorers and high goal scoring matches. And it seems like Rivera has got something going. The confidence in the side is really nice to see. And it feels like Pirates are probably a team that is closer to maybe competing with Sundowns. And for me, if they could just take away some of those draws every now and then, you can maintain that momentum with Sundowns.
I think a quick mention to Pirates as well, management-wise, because they could have easily offloaded Zakele Lapasa long ago because of the amount of injuries that he's had in his career. They've sent him out on loan a couple of times. He won the Nedbank Cup with I think TS Galaxy when they were still in the league lower than the DStv Premiership, and they brought him back because they knew what they had in him, you know. And he's repaying that now. A fitter, stronger Zakele Lapasa gives you goals, plenty of them. A hat-trick in the quarterfinals. He scored again in the semi. So it's looking really good from a Pirates point of view, and it's set up nicely for the return leg as well. They've got 2 goals away. They're coming back home for the second leg of the semi-final. So definitely look like a team that has already got their 1 foot in the final.
2 goals, crucial away from home. Also must give shout out to Maswangani. I mean, it's 2 assists. And we often speak about the goal scorers here. We don't give the guys that give those passes. And that was proper two assists as well. So, it seems like probably everyone to remain fit at Pirates. There could potentially be a big season ahead. And, of course, if Ulipasa can continue Zexman scoring those goals. Yeah, and interesting now, just one more point. Seems to be a lot more headed goals.
Yeah.
In the both sides.
Yeah.
There's a lot of headed goals.
Yeah.
Both semi-finals, let me put it that way rather. Seems
Headed
to be
goals.
headed goals.
Yeah.
I don't know what that means. Yafakwe cross emzansi. Fakwe cross.
Yeah. That's interesting from a technical point of view also. Yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting to try and debunk that kind of tactic and why our coaches setting up to put in the ball into the box and have the players meet it with their head. So
because it's not like, when you think about it, it's not like these really like tall strikers.
No.
They're not. But like the headers have been proper stunning, like clean. Yeah. And that means also the accuracy of the crosses, because I mean, you're finding guys in the 18 area that are not necessarily massive oaks and that pinpoint, which is probably interesting to follow, because I didn't really you would have thought as a big South African thing at the moment, but it
carpet
seems to
football
be,
is more of South African stuff.
Yeah.
Should we touch on F1, or is it something that...
No, we can touch on F1. It's not a problem there.
F1, because I mean, you watched the race last night.
Yeah. While we were working.
And Carlos Sainz led for a little bit.
Yeah, 14 laps. I mean, it wasn't bad, but Ferrari seems to be. They seem to have pace for one lap, but I think this weekend, which was surprising for everyone, I think they definitely had the quickest car on the straight. I mean, I think there were stats of like 350 Ks of the straight, and which was, there was the closest to them was, guess who? Guess who was the closest to
Mercedes?
Ferrari? To Ferrari. Mercedes were one of the worst. Mercedes was one of the worst. It was Williams, bro.
Williams,
with like 348 off the straight to Albon. So it's that car has definitely been one of the quickest in the straight. But Mercedes was like 338. Max, obviously, the Red Bulls was quicker off like the chicanes. That's where their traction was good, so they could close the gap, and then obviously Sainz would have to try to push off the straight. So every time he got to the wiggly parts of the track,
course,
that's where Max was closing the gap.
If we talk if we're talking upgrades for the season so far, I must say the team that you just mentioned, Williams, McLaren, and Alpine have made some upgrades, are very surprising this season, especially Williams. I'm very happy for Albon. And
after
how
the Red Bull,
the Red Bull, and I think he's definitely he's staying for a very long time right now.
It's an interesting one, because like clearly being a team leader, he has like risen up to that, pressures, and I think he's found the team. Because if you had to ask him right now, would you want to go to Red Bull when Perez is done?
Yeah,
I probably would say no, because
stay here.
Williams is making strides. I agree. Because they're very competitive, and of course it's been certain track specific.
Yes.
The more straights they have, the more they come into to the party, which is really good. And I think it's Monza is one of your quicker tracks. And I think the surprising part for me was, obviously Ferrari having the right. I think they just probably made less downforce and kind of focus on straight line speed. And Red Bull was slightly different to that, where they focused on a little bit more downforce, knowing that their overall pace, the deficit wasn't that big, but they'll catch them up. And of course, having the DRS behind Sainz for so long kept him in that race. I mean, just looking at just the top 10, Max, of course, we have to talk about Max. 10 in a row. I think he's won 28 of the last 35 races. 80% of the last 35 races. So it just shows you how informed Max is. Well done, Max. Well done, 6. Bro. We have to give you, because it's you guys. Max finished first, Perez second. There was a very, very interesting fight between the Ferraris, 3 and 4. Because obviously, being in Italy, having the Tifosi right there, being at home, trying to impress. And the Ferraris had a go at each other, trying to fight for that last podium position. And at times I was like, what are they doing? What are you doing? Because you could have easily crashed each other out. And then it just... Ufese was like, hey, Chief, we need to entertain the Italian people because at the moment they're not competing in the front. But let's at least
home.
Give them something. Leclerc was 4th, Russell 5th, Hamilton 6th. Russell had a 5-second penalty, but it was a big enough gap that Hamilton couldn't gain. Albon again finishing well, 7th. Norris, also very interesting race, him and Piastri. I think that's also going to be a very interesting combination to watch because Piastri is coming for Lando. He's being consistent. And at some point, they're going to clash. They're going to crash because this boy now is maybe not seeing himself as a number 2. He sees himself as, because they did even hit each other on that corner of, I think, off the first corner. And I was like, what are these two doing? So it just shows you once you start getting closer, that boy must say, hey, I'm coming for you. Alonso doing Alonso things still in the top 10, 9th, and Bottas completing the top 10. And just to say, I mean, the next one is going to be in Singapore on the 15th. And quickly, the points. Red Bull are currently sitting on 583. Mercedes 273.
That's a huge gap.
Ferrari and Mercedes have pipped Aston Martin now. Aston Martin sitting on 4 and Ferrari on 228, coming to that 3rd position. So it feels like if he continues the way the it'll probably stay like that. Interesting times. Singapore being the next race.
DRS, what, it's all Chinese to me.
The only thing I hate, if Ferrari can sort out the tire management, because that's where they're getting chowed at the moment. Red Bull is very good with those
strategy. Before we go to the Premier League, it's gonna form a bulk of our chat, but we need to keep that short as well.
I'm not going to talk about. I'm not going to talk about VAR. I'm not going to talk about VAR. I will not talk about VAR. I'm done with VAR.
I'm going to keep it short as well because I lost to Forest. So what am I going to say?
Chelsea lost to Forest.
Before we get to the Premier League, we've got a continuous sort of headache in South African sport in terms of the broadcast rights. I mean, we obviously work for the one broadcaster, and
I used to work for the other broadcaster as well.
You used to work for the other broadcaster.
So interesting conversation.
It's a very interesting conversation, but it's a disheartening one as well because you would imagine that the public broadcaster would be able to broadcast games of national interest, and that's their mandate. But it's so difficult for them to get rights. There's a lot that gets said in the media about that specific topic and why the public broadcaster sort of struggles to get those rights. I feel we need a strong public broadcaster.
100%.
We really do need a strong public broadcaster because it not only gives the national teams a bigger platform, a bigger reach, but it also gives enough jobs for you and I.
Yes.
A healthy public broadcaster opens up so many opportunities for so many people.
Yeah.
So the reason why we're speaking about this is that obviously this past week it was announced that they won't be showing the Rugby World Cup.
Couldn't show the Australian series.
Couldn't show the Australian series. Now can't show the Rugby World Cup.
Yeah.
It's tough because when you look at the impact of what 2019 did in terms of
the nation,
the nation and the product itself of rugby and its impact on a lot of young South Africans who want to play rugby.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, rugby doesn't become or doesn't get perceived as a white-dominated sport because they see the likes of Siya Kolisi, they see the likes of Makazole Mapimpi, who scores the first ever try from a Springbok in a World Cup final. They see Lucanio they see the Cheslin Colbys, they see the Damian Willemses, they see
the representation.
South Africa, yeah. They see a representation of themselves in those stars. And because it's accessible, you can switch it on. You don't have to pay any amount of money to switch on to SABC 1, 2, 3 to watch a game of rugby at a World Cup.
Yeah.
It's disheartening, and I think we don't have the answers. We obviously don't.
It's above our pay grade.
It's very much above our pay grade, but I think there needs to be a lot of good conversations between all those parties to prioritize the fact that that product has an impact. Cricket has an impact. Football has an impact. Rugby has an impact on young South Africans wanting to pursue careers in those sporting codes. And not only those three sporting codes, there's other sporting codes as well, netball, hockey, whatever. We need to try and find solutions and people to find those solutions to this problem, because it is a problem. It's not something that we can sit here and say, because we work for the other broadcaster, we say, great for us. It's not great for us, because we want to see people working in those spaces and have enough conversation, because we might not get it.
The reach.
Yeah.
It's the reach.
We might not get it right all the time, and somebody else from a different platform has a different perspective. So it creates great conversation. It creates the reach that we want, and hopefully people can get it right.
And on top of that, sport is for everyone.
Yeah.
That's the bottom line. Is sport is for everyone. It should be accessible to everyone. The national team represent all of us.
Yeah.
And I think you're spot on in terms, I was on the other side, and you have interesting conversations with people who, remember Mzansi Super League for the first time. And, when I was staying right across the stadium, Wanderers, and the staff, the helpers there, when they saw, they could see me every day going to training, but they like cricket, they don't see it.
Yeah. As soon as it was on SABC.
And when it was MSL and we're doing well, when I was coming back home, they were like, "Hey, Bo, we saw you doing amazing things and all this stuff." They could relate, they could see it. And that for me, I was like, we go to the airports around the country during that. It was buzzing. People that you never thought, were coming to you and saying, "Hey, well done." For what you're doing. That's amazing. The conversation. So it speaks about the importance of making sure that it's accessible to everyone. And I think, again, as someone who was given an opportunity on the other side by the other broadcaster, I'm here today because of that opportunity. Someone opened that window, that door for me to be doing this even today, because I love talking about sports and the game, but someone had to have given me that opportunity and learn. It was a great place to learn, opportunity to get these tools of being in front of the camera, behind the camera, etc. And that's what SABC will always be. It's given a lot of people, a lot of our team currently on the other side.
Yes.
Most of them come from the other side.
Yeah.
You know, so it shows you that the opportunities that are available from the national broadcaster, you know, are crucial. And I think it's a conversation that CSA needs to lead. And of course, the two giants need to come. And of course, guys, these things about money.
Yes.
We have to be honest. These things about money. If one broadcaster buys the rights and the other one wants to sublet the rights, you have to put money on the table. But it's how these conversations are happening. Are we leaving it last minute and saying, boom, you don't have a choice, pay? Oganye, are we saying, okay, how are these conversations? And unfortunately, we're not privy to how these conversations are being held. But we get to see the statements, and of course, we see people. Just one more thing as well. Someone who's traveled to live. Guys, I think in England, I was looking at Sky Sports.
Yep.
You pay £40 a month to get
Access,
Sky.
yeah.
And by the way, Sky does not cover all the Premier League games.
Nope.
So in England, you have a combination of Sky,
BT.
Amazon, BT. BT has changed now. They changed names. TS something. Yeah. And you could literally have a combination of the three, if not four,
just to
get
full access.
In South Africa, we pay 1,000 rand all inclusive.
Yeah.
Like all included. And you think about that, 1,000 divided by, what is it to a pound right now?
Yeah.
So it's also, you got to think about how these things are packaged. It's completely, South Africa, we're one of the few, people were complaining over the weekend right now. Sky was not showing Liverpool game. And people were complaining that how are we paying all these amounts for this, but yet you don't get all the games. South Africa is one of the few nations where we get to see all the games. And there are times where obviously we don't see the League Cups and all that stuff. That's a sacrifice that's been made, that, you know, some of those games. So that's also the impact that people maybe also don't understand of the business, that we are sitting at a privileged position. I laugh at some of the English friends and said, I'm watching all these games. They're saying, I don't even have access to this. So there's so much to be discussed on these conversations, because at times we don't understand our privilege in terms of, but at the same time we got to understand the economy of our country, and those 1,000 rand is a lot of money. And of course, this is where now, SABC comes into, I've mentioned the name now, comes into the party. And they do show certain games of the Premier League as well, which is crucial. But also, you got to also keep in mind in terms of how these rights are expensive.
Being sold.
Being expensive. And of course, different broadcasters bid for these, to have these rights.
Because you can go into the 100 millions, close to the billions, just for Premier League rights or rugby rights.
Just even in the past, domestic cricket rights. So it used to be, there'll be certain games that are covered by this program. Semi-finals used to be, let's say the two semi-finals. Obviously, being semi-finals. One broadcaster would showcase the domestic final on their platform, and the other. So those are some of the relationships that were there. But surely, with money not being there, the other one started taking over because there was, that vacancy there. So, we had the CSA Awards a couple of months ago. We had a presenter from one broadcaster, a presenter from another, which is, some of the relationship is still there. But of course, the more they work together, the more it serves the South African people. I think that's what it boils down to.
Yeah, I think we've covered it.
Yeah,
I think we've covered it. Premier League, I think we'll close off with the Premier League, because it's helpful for me and you, Nons. And maybe Lunga will have a lot to say in this.
I'm sure he's got a lot to say.
But maybe we can start with Chelsea Forest. Obviously, that for me was a game where, and I've said it before, we don't have the experience to consistently win games in the league because of the young age of that squad. But there's no excuse, because it shouldn't be excused because we had plenty of opportunities, particularly in that first half, to find 3 or 4 goals. I think Nicholas Jackson missed from an empty net again in the second half. There were so many. It was just such an erratic performance from Chelsea at home, and we've seen a lot of those performances at home in the past sort of 2 seasons, going back to last season and the beginning of this season. So it's so disheartening for me from a Chelsea fan point of view to see such an erratic performance, very low quality, and it's such a tepid sort of performance from a Chelsea side that you expect to beat Forest at home. But hats off to Forest, because we spoke about it after that Man United result where they almost and they actually did push United all the way, but just couldn't find that winning touch. That's it for this week, Nons. I think we've done justice. Thank you so much for listening in. Please don't forget to subscribe, like, comment. Please tell us.
I'm still waiting for those comments.
Yeah, please tell us what you'd like us to speak about.
Who to invite as a guest?
Who do you want us to speak to? We've got a nice big couch here that we can invite people to have plenty of chats.
I mean, we are looking to do a few, I think, especially during this international break. So, I mean, we're not under enormous amount of pressure to obviously review and chat about the game. So, yeah, we're trying to use that time on a few interviews as well.
Yeah, all around, as they say,
Instagram,
on Instagram,
Twitter, and of course,
X.
Yeah. And yeah, we obviously on YouTube. You can find our full vodcast, I think they are.
Yes.
I'm a dinosaur when it comes to things. There's podcast, there's vodcast.
Yes.
AfriPods as well, and on Spotify as well.
Yeah. And we'll see you next week.
Cheers.